There it is.
Here we are.
There
Finally.
we are.
You'd think I would have this figured out.
Yeah, well, you know, technology.
Well, I am Amy.
And I am Derrick, and I'm having drinks with Amy. How you doing, Amy?
I will be after my drink is in my system. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm drinking
Pineapple juice.
and rum.
And rum.
Yes. And what I like about this pineapple juice is that it's from Trader Joe's.
Nice.
And it says, Trader Joe's pineapple juice is 100% pineapple juice made from whole fresh fruit and not from concentrate. If you juiced fresh peeled pineapple, you'd get what's in this can.
Nice.
Because I'm definitely not juicing that pineapple.
Yeah, I totally don't even know where to start that process.
I mean, you peel it and then you put it through a juicer. But
maybe?
I don't have one of those.
I don't think it's that simple, honestly. I could be wrong.
What are you drinking?
So, I am drinking. Can you see that? Feed the monkey Hefeweizen.
Nice.
Feed the monkey. Yeah, it's a beer that we get from. So there's this our local beer place is called Drink, and we go there because it's very simple to understand what we're supposed to do with the stuff that we get from there. We drink it. And they always have these very interesting beers, and Feed the Monkey Hefeweizen is one of those beers that is just delicious and unique. And I actually think it's a. Let me see.
Where can you get it?
It is a Maryland brewery. It's called Jailbreak Brewing Company.
Oh.
Maryland-based brewery. So I'm also drinking local, which I can feel real good about that.
Absolutely.
I was like, I
you're like too cool for school right now.
I know, right? I mean, I'm just helping out the local economy. No big deal. Whatever.
And growing your own vegetables and stuff.
Yeah. So I almost my plan B drink was. So I've been doing this for 2 years now of cucumbers that I grow. Mm-hmm. I muddle them and then I soak them in either gin or vodka, and then strain them, and then you get this either cucumber flavored vodka or cucumber flavored gin, and it's delicious and it's super refreshing on hot days. Mm-hmm. And I was just
anything, or do you just drink it?
Well, you usually mix it with. No, I think I guess you could, but usually I mix it with the gin I mix with tonic and have a cucumber gin and tonic or vodka tonic, So but I was feeling too lazy to strain the cucumbers tonight, so some other time.
Just drop them in. What's the problem?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's things have to be done a proper way.
Oh.
There's a right way to do things.
I'll take
so the right way to drink this beer was to open it and to pour it into my glass.
Okay, perfect.
That felt like where I was tonight.
There you go. Uncomplicated.
Just needed kind of simple, Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. So.
Me not juicing my own pineapple.
Exactly, right? I mean, you're not juicing your own pineapples. I'm not straining cucumbers. We're just being easy tonight. We're just being easy.
Yeah. It's out of the box, not artisan.
Yeah. This is not artisanal beverage night.
We should do one of those. That'd be fun.
Totally. Now that I've said it, we totally should. But not tonight.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. But totally, we should do that at some point.
We should do a whole week where it's these really fancy craft cocktail recipe posts, and then
yeah. Something that involves a torch, so that something gets set on fire at some point.
Creme brulee.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
or a s'more. I feel like I saw like a s'mores shot that was like, I don't know, Bailey's and Kahlua with like a toasted marshmallow on top or something.
There you go.
Anyway.
That's the dream. Fire makes everything better.
Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't work.
Yeah. So we're talking about therapy tonight, right?
Yeah. Yes, we are. Yeah, and
why therapy is hard.
And why therapy is hard. Yeah. So, yeah. So anyone who's ever like followed me on Twitter or Facebook or anything, like I use the hashtag therapy is hard all the time. Usually like right after I've gotten out of therapy, and it's like therapy is hard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of it. But like, what's the alternative, right?
So tell me more about like what's actually happening in your body when you have that feeling therapy is hard.
A couple things. Sometimes, I mean, depending on the session, it could be like it could feel like a big just kind of exhale, like shoulders lowering. Therapy is hard, and this like ugh.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like it's a tensing. Like God, this is so hard, and I wish it weren't as hard as it is. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really depends. I think this week's therapy session was more the latter, more of a like, God, why is this so hard? Why is this so complicated? Why is dealing with my own mind such a complicated endeavor? And it's because, you know, people are messy and complicated and honestly, like, you know, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is because so many things like in the moment go unprocessed, right? Like we're just in the day-to-day act of surviving, and we don't process things, and then we have this concentrated space where we're stopping to process sometimes a week's worth of things, sometimes a month's worth of things, sometimes a lifetime worth of things, and it's like, yeah, that's work. That is absolute work. So yeah. So how about you? What has your history with therapy been like?
I saw a therapist / spiritual director.
Okay.
For a while, right after I came out, and after I finished seminary, I'd come out so in like a 6-month period, my grandmother died. I like got together with my first like significant other relationship, and I finished seminary, and I moved to the Midwest.
Okay.
So it was like one of those situations where every hard thing about life that can happen had happened.
Yeah.
And I was like just trying to figure it out, and I just felt like I needed a little bit of support. And I needed someone to talk to who wasn't family or friend or pastor. Like I needed someone, like I felt crazy in my mind, and I just needed someone to like help me sort through it.
Yeah. Sort
through the crazy that I was feeling. And it was very reassuring because it was like, okay, yeah, I'm not that crazy. I actually am very self-aware, and I know exactly what's going on. I don't know a way forward yet. And this person is bringing me back to what I can do right now and helping me kind of manage the feelings and the processes. And it was really helpful to have that external witness at the time. And what people don't realize about coming out is that you have to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's what everyone has told me, is that it's not just like a one-time event.
It's
like,
not like you like post a Facebook status update that's like, hey everybody, I'm not straight. It's like, you know, it's the next time you see anyone.
Right.
After they know.
Right.
It's just exhausting. And so I was in that place where I was coming out to everyone I knew.
Yeah.
And there was a wide range of reactions, a broad mix of reactions. And I just needed somebody to talk to who wasn't connected to any of that.
Yeah.
You know, who was really there for me. And no matter what I said, it didn't affect them.
Right.
You know? Because like with my friends, I could see the effect of my queerness.
Yeah.
On them and on the relationship itself. With family, it was the same thing. It was like people even when people try not to see you differently, they see you differently.
Yeah.
And out of everybody I knew, there were like 3 or 4 people total who were just like, all right. And it was like, just took it, like, they were just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else was like, what? Really? Are you sure? You know? And at the same time, I was in a same-sex relation. I was in a relationship for the first time. Yes, mm-hmm. It happened to be with someone of the same sex as me, but mm-hmm. It was also just my first relationship, and I was navigating that.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just a lot all at once, and I needed accountability.
Yeah.
And I needed someone that I would see every week so that I could just keep, you know, my head above water.
Yeah.
It was so much that I was processing all at once. You know?
Yeah.
Like extreme joys and extreme sorrows at the same time. So that's my experience with therapy. I was really only in like that wasn't even that traditional, but traditional like talk therapy for, I'd say it was about 6 months.
Okay.
8 months. And that was about 8 years ago.
Mm.
But it was absolutely what I needed at the time. And now I have a spiritual director who I see like once a month.
Yeah.
Twice a month. And that's good for me right now.
Yeah.
So, and Carly's here.
Yay.
So Carly has a lot of experience in therapy of lots of different kinds. So I'm gonna jump in on the conversation.
Cool.
Yeah. She's navigated that whole world at all levels of intensity.
Yeah. Good.
So how long have you been in therapy? How long have you been in therapy, and do you have a diagnosis?
Yes.
And when were you diagnosed?
So I have been in therapy pretty much nonstop since 2011. Mm-hmm. I have a diagnosis.
Like nonstop means weekly, month, like what?
So it's been weekly most of that time.
Uh-huh.
In 2014, 2 years ago, right after I went through my divorce, I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder.
Okay.
And sometime early in my therapeutic career, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from some childhood abuse stuff that I'd experienced.
Mm-hmm. Now, what's the difference between post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic stress syndrome. Are those just different words for the same thing?
It's mostly the same. It's mostly.
Are we just trying not to make people feel disordered?
Yeah, and I don't know that syndrome's better, honestly. I don't know if I would rather have a disorder or a syndrome.
Right.
I haven't given that too much thought. But right now I'm sticking with my disorder. I'm sticking with my disorder. So it's mostly the same, and that was really tough because that was coming to terms with words like trauma. Mm-hmm. That was coming to terms with words like abuse. Mm-hmm. Things that I did not want to own for myself. Things that I felt like, no, there are people in the world who go through way harder things than I do, and I don't need to own that kind of stuff and have some outside neutral person listen to my life experiences and say, no, those are traumatic experiences. Those are experiences of abuse. Yeah. And you need to deal with that because those things are affecting the way that you do your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
So so that has been a part of my experience. And so also I actually started therapy in 2011, or I guess that was 2012. Right after my first full-time church call, which was a disaster. Oh. And I was incredibly depressed after that. And so many things came out of that experience that was it was triggering for so many other things. Mm-hmm. Feelings of failure, feelings of self-worth, feelings of and also, I mean, there was also the balance of like the therapeutic aspect and the like faith aspect of like, where is God in this, and do I need therapy? Should I just be praying more? Do I need therapy? Should I just have more faith? Mm-hmm. And that can get all messed up too.
Yeah.
So, blah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned trauma because I actually forgot that that's a thing that I was dealing with. When that was one of the main reasons.
Funny how we forget trauma.
I know. It was one of the things that I really was processing and working through with the therapist. Because mine wasn't overt abuse by anyone. It was medical.
Okay.
Trauma. It was sexual medical trauma. Like,
okay.
So there was medical trauma that involved my lady parts. And for about a week, I had all kinds of people up in there. Nurses, doctors, like trying to figure out what was wrong, what was happening, how to fix it. Because I was 12 and I had my first period when I was 12. And then 6 months later, I had my second period, and it was 6 months at once.
Oh, God.
And I almost bled to death.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was like no one knew it was wrong. I couldn't, like, I was so anemic that I couldn't get out of bed without passing out. Like, so they first tried to stop the bleeding with hormones. And that didn't work. So then they had to do a DNC. So they had to go inside and scoop out. Well, they actually used a suction thing to suction out all of the tissue that was in my uterus.
Wow.
And I mean, I was in a lot of pain. I was not, I mean, it was like, and I was in the peds ward because I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, you know, these nurses who'd never dealt with anything like that. And no one had ever dealt with anything like that.
Yeah.
And I had to pee in a bedpan, and I wasn't even aware enough to like take care of my own sanitary protection,
mm-hmm.
which was basically a diaper because I was bleeding so much. So, yeah. So there was that.
So
there's Parky.
And I didn't, it was like I was out of school for a month because I was too anemic to go to school, and it was 7th grade, so I couldn't talk about it. And I never really thought about that being traumatic because it was just a thing that happened, and to save my life, they gave me a blood transfusion and a DNC.
Yeah.
Even
just your description of it right now is traumatic.
Sorry.
No, but I when you, I mean, I think there are some things that we experience that feel like this is life until we have it reflected back to us from someone else.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're reflecting on it as, holy shit, that was a lot, Yeah,
and I got to this place where I was 22 and I hadn't really dated anyone, and I wasn't really interested in sex, and I liked to make out, but that was it. There was nothing below the waist. I was like, no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And then I actually liked, I think I was 22, and I actually liked someone enough to want things to happen down there that were fun.
Yeah.
But when things that I wanted to be fun happened down there, they were not fun.
Right. Because
I freaked out.
Right.
Post-trauma.
Because you were traumatized.
Yes. I was traumatized. And so then, it was after that I was actually in a production of the Vagina Monologues. And I was backstage, and I was listening to the fun, funny stories. And then I was listening to the stories of rape and abuse. Mm-hmm. And I was identified way more with the stories of rape and abuse than the fun, happy stories. And I was like, that's fucked up. What's that about? Why? And then I really thought about it, and I was like, oh, that happened.
Yeah.
And then actually when I was 16, I had a kidney stone that got stuck, and they had to, I know, and they had to go get it.
Oh, thank you, please.
So by the time I was 16, I had 2 major medical procedures down there.
Up in
there.
All up
in there.
All of it. And so before anyone who was attracted to me and loved me and was curious about my body was up in there, mm-hmm. all these doctors and nurses and all kinds and all kinds of things
gonna make
were.
It weird, so get into it. Let's talk about therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy. Yeah. And so that's why I
went.
That's why I felt like, okay, this is too much for me to do on my own.
Yeah.
In the midst of all of that other stuff, ugh. So anyway, Carly.
Hi, Carly.
And Carly has a lot of experience with therapy. What are
the viewers?
I don't know. What are you drinking, Carly?
I'm waiting for my tea to steep.
What kind of tea?
What kind of tea?
It's just a mixture of peppermint and green rooibos.
Nice.
I'm going to put my ice into it. Oh, it's not enough. Oh. Okay, be right back. So I tried to do it all in one go, but...
So before Carly comes back, was this experience something that you'd kind of blocked out, or those experiences something you kind of blocked out until you were in a situation, or was it something that
blocked it out, but it was just a story.
Okay. It
was this is the thing that happened to me. And it was a story of something that had happened to me.
Okay.
But I hadn't really processed what had actually happened to me and the violation that I felt. So I had processed the events.
Okay.
I had not processed the feelings that I had about those events.
That makes sense.
Because I didn't know how to have them at the time.
Yeah.
I just had to kind of put them in a little box and move on with my life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So then later I started dancing again, and I, started, that box just opened up and everything came out, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
About your box.
About my box.
I wasn't going to go there, but I'm glad you did.
I did.
So, Carly, why don't you tell us a little bit of your therapeutic history, your history with therapy?
I've been in therapy for 16 years.
Okay.
I would say that I am an expert in the field.
Of receiving therapy?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it was, I don't remember who it was, one of the Beatles who says, if you've done 10,000 hours of something, then you're an expert. And I believe I've done 10,000 hours, maybe? I don't know. Could you ask me a question, actually? Can you ask me a question?
What's another question?
Yeah, so what,
Why did you go to therapy in the first place?
so there's that, okay, let's do that. Let's do that first. We're going to start there.
Well, I was 16 and I was sent to therapy because
Okay.
I was not eating and cutting my body up with plates. So at that point, when you're a kid, by a kid I mean when you're still in college, like anything before, when your mailing address is still your home,
Like your parents?
your parents' house,
Yeah.
then it's kind of up to your parents where
Under 18, when you're a minor.
But even after,
Yeah.
when they're still paying for your health insurance, when they're still doing that, you kind of don't have a choice as to where to go. And which is kind of scary now that I think about it, because you don't really have control over who you're choosing as your therapist. Fortunately, my first and second one were not great. I had a good third one who I saw for about 2 years, and really liked her.
What's the difference between a good therapist? I feel like I've been pretty lucky that I've had mostly good therapists.
Mm-hmm.
Therapists that I've liked, therapists that I've connected with. What has been your experience between what makes a good therapist and what makes a bad therapist, or at least a bad therapeutic experience?
Yeah. There are two factors that I look at: experience and then God-given talent.
Okay.
And sometimes one is good, sometimes one is, I've had both. I've had someone with a lot of experience. I've had someone with a lot of doctorates and letters after their name. And then I've had somebody who I'm seeing now who doesn't have a doctorate, doesn't have all the letters after her name, but I believe that she has a given talent that makes her superior to, it's her second career, so she chose it, after doing other things, and kind of, I don't know if she fell into it or if that was her, whatever, doesn't matter, but
it's her vocation. It's not just her job.
Yeah, she is. She's great. I've been in. What was it? So, what are you guys talking about exactly? How to choose one?
So the title is Therapy is Hard.
Okay.
Because what we experience is doing the deep inner work of healing.
Yep.
Is hard.
Yeah.
Meaning that you have to be really honest with yourself and your therapist or your spirit, or whoever's helping you heal. And you have to be kind of humble about it and extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I know. Yeah.
We're talking about what is therapy? What is it good for? Who is it good for? And then eventually we're going to talk about how it's different from spiritual direction.
Okay. Well,
So you were 16 when you started?
yeah, but I did not really understand therapy until, of course, way later.
And how does it help you now?
What I think people don't understand, and what I've come to understand, is that therapy is not, they don't fix you. They are a witness, a educated, and they're like a director, where when you really are successful in therapy is when you don't walk in and say, here are all the problems, I need you to fix me. Mm-hmm. When you say, here are my problems, let's figure out how we can do it together. So I look at them as like bumpers on a bowling alley, where they're going to keep you on the path, but it's a group effort. And so therefore, when you're looking for a therapist, when you're trying to find somebody to work with, the things that I have now learned to look for are, do I feel safe? In the sense of, do I feel judged at all? Do I feel, and that these are things that you sometimes have to learn by being judged by a therapist. Yeah. Unfortunately, when you after, a lot of people will need the opposite. Like they're a woman, they need a straight man. I thought that I needed a straight woman. I do not. I want a queer Jewish woman. That's what I want, because I know that I don't need to explain anything to her in that way. And I didn't know that I needed that until I walked in, and it was like I didn't have to explain anything. And sorry. Can I scoot back? I have to scoot back because
she's bumping the
and I'm
table.
Sweating. It's like a whole situation.
None of this is showing though.
It's fine. It's good.
Yeah. So like, there's something unspoken about someone who walks through the world in a similar way that you do.
Yeah, and with some people that's not how it works, and
they don't need that.
They don't need that. They need someone who's the opposite. They need someone who's going to, hold the boundaries. For me, I am not a tough love situation. I need a gentle and I've had that. I need patience. I need gentle. I need understanding. I need compassionate. I need empathy. I need someone who's just gonna. I need to be seen, and I also need very strong boundaries, because I'm very smart in therapy room, and I've been to a lot of therapists, and I know how to manipulate, and it's my default to manipulate, and it's my sickness that will manipulate, and I will push and push and push, because my sick brain wants something that doesn't, let's see how to explain it. What my sick brain wants, I can get from manipulation, but it doesn't help me in the long run. It doesn't help what I actually need. Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, that resonates with me so much. I had a therapist, I think my first therapist that I had 4 years ago, I feel like I got a lot of like warm fuzzies from him. Like he was just like, he gave me a lot of affirmation. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of like I was leading him to that. Like, can you please say nice things about me? Right. And what I have found since then, and I have found that most of what I found has been effective for me is that I do well with female therapists, and I do well with female therapists who can see through my bullshit.
Yeah.
And then I actually get work done. Mm-hmm. I actually get something productive happening if I have someone who I can't manipulate, who will see through my crap and say, yeah, but what you actually are trying to say here is blah, blah, blah. So that's really big. And I think that's especially true for people who have had a lot of therapy. Mm-hmm. Like if you've been in therapeutic relationships for a long time, you kind of know the deal, and you kind of know like what they want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what's actually your truth.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And so from that therapist when you were 16,
Mm-hmm.
like, can you just give us like a quick chronology of, so like from 16 to what age did you see that therapist?
I saw her till I was 18.
And then what happened?
Then I went to college, and I saw, some of the doctors on campus, and,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember.
They weren't great.
Well, they were
And you were on drugs.
I was doing a lot of drugs. I ended up going into a treatment center where I had a phenomenal therapist there. It was only for like 6 weeks. She was, and
Which one was that?
It was in Sierra Tucson. Her name was Katie Freeman. She lives in Arizona. If you ever find her, and I can't find her anymore. She's phenomenal. She's phenomenal. We did a lot of because we had 2 hours twice a day for Monday through Friday in a treatment center
For 28 days.
No, I was there for 6 weeks. So for 6 weeks, and you have the same group. We do a lot of very in-depth psychodrama where it's very, very beyond vulnerable, where it's a very, very safe place, and
that sounds very intense.
it's very intense, where all you do is have therapy and then you rest and you therapy. It's very intense, and like you have to take a break, and it's very intense. And
so you were there for 6 weeks, and then what happened?
I don't know. I went home and kept getting worse and worse and worse, and
you didn't see a therapist.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I didn't do well.
Then what happened?
And then
you were sent to rehab again?
I went to rehab again a few years later, maybe 2 years later. Let's see, 18, 19, 20. 3 years later, I went to a treatment center again.
How long were you there?
I was inpatient there for about 9 months.
And how many times did you have therapy?
We processing group every day, but I had individual therapy 3 times a week.
For how long?
For a year, and then I saw.
Well, but 3 times a week for how long each time?
Oh, an hour and a half. Yeah, 90 minutes. Because I was, I have, mental disorders where I needed to look. I was undiagnosed as ADHD, and so people would ask me questions, and it would feel like a film strip was being ripped across my brain, and I couldn't pick out any thoughts, and so I would just sit and be silent, and then, I wouldn't rock, but I would just, they would call me dial up, because I would be like, and then I would forget the question, and so I spent a lot of time in there. Anyway,
dial up internet.
Correct.
Yeah.
I did.
So you were
remember that?
So you were inpatient for 9 months,
Correct.
And then what? Outpatient for
almost another year, where I saw her. I still saw her twice a week.
the same therapist.
Same therapist. I also was in a group. I also recommend groups, which you should be with a different therapist. You should not be in a group or in couples therapy with your individual therapist. Very important. You need someone who's on your side to the end. And I've also been in. I had another therapist. I forgot about her. Not great. I mean, I did have another therapist who I did family therapy with her, and every time my family was in the room, and she would not take my side, I'd be like, "What are you doing? You're mine." Yeah, that messed me up. And so I thought she was great, and then I was devastated by her. Yeah, we broke some boundaries there. So.
After
I just erased her off my brain. That's crazy. Before I do that too.
After the outpatient,
I could manipulate some doctors, man. I could do it.
So after the outpatient for a year, then
Correct.
What? Then you moved here?
Correct.
And then what?
I moved here to San Francisco. I had a therapist when I was in LA, where I went to rehab for the second time. I had a therapist who was young and very educated, but I don't think she had dealt with someone like me, and she cared about me so much that I was able to, and I needed her so much, and I was able to manipulate her so to the end. And then it ended up burning and crashing where I could not live without seeing her. And and then she realized what I was doing and she had to cut the boundary, and it was devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to move to San Francisco to get away from her because I was so devastated. And
you were here for 2-3 years before you found another therapist? I feel like it was 3 years.
It was a long time. I was really, really devastated about her.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's when you found your current therapist?
Correct.
4 years ago?
Yeah, 4 years ago. 4 years ago in October. I've been seeing her 4 years.
And how long were you seeing her before she referred you to the psychiatric program at UCSF?
Not that long.
Like 6 months?
Yeah. Yeah, she was able to recognize that what I was describing to her was medical, where I needed chemical assistance, which I've been on medication for the same amount. I've been on medication since I was 16 until now, different medicines, and I finally think I'm getting closer. Also with women, is that I don't know about men, but with women, our chemical bodies are continuously changing, meaning that you need to see a doctor all the time, and it's not uncommon to change your medication a couple times a year, because especially if you haven't had a kid yet, your hormones are crazy and your body is actually changing all the time. So I have to see a doctor at least every 6 weeks, if not every month. Wow. I take a lot of medication.
Mm-hmm.
I take
so that's kind of where we are now, is that you have a psychiatrist that you see once a month and you have a therapist that you see once a week.
Correct.
And I just quickly, what have your diagnoses been? Because no one's known what to do with you.
Correct. My first one, I think my first, is always depression. That was the first one. I was given depression. I was saying bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder. I don't know what the hell that is. I kept saying
depressive?
No, they said bipolar because I was having ups and downs, and my ups were, I was very manic for about a week, and then my crashes were very long and very, very destructive. And I was doing things that I would never do. And so, I was stealing money, I was stealing drugs, I was doing severe self-harm. I would steal them, I'd get all these drugs, and then I would do them, and then I'd crash for like a month. It was dark.
And what's your diagnosis now?
Now, I was finally diagnosed with attention deficit, ADHD, the one with hyperactivity.
Mm-hmm.
Generalized anxiety, because I was pretty much born with anxiety, and I don't know if I have a mood disorder. I don't know. I have a little bit of depression. I don't know what I have.
Yeah, and actually ADHD in women can create depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand about ADHD in women specifically, is that the internalization of the inability to perform turns into depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what's happening with you. I'm just saying that's what can happen.
I think I'm just really sensitive.
Well, that's number one.
I think I'm really sensitive, and I don't know if I care about what my diagnosis is now. I mostly care about what medicine works,
mm-hmm.
and and
what therapy works.
What therapy works, and I'm also all about things changing. I'm open to everything, which is a very difficult thing to do. Also, you need a diagnosis to, the only diagnosis that I care about right now is my ADHD. It's the only one that really, really matters.
Because then you can get an individual education plan if you're in school. You can get occupational therapy support if you're in a workplace situation.
And I
There's
understand
support for that.
Yeah, and the reason why you need a diagnosis is because you need a recovery plan. And once you have that plan, doesn't really matter what else comes along. So it's like I don't have bipolar disorder, but I take a mood stabilizer. I don't know why. It helps my brain function. I take a high dose of Lexapro, which which I think is the best drug out there because it's besides Ritalin, which is the best. I take Lexapro. Correct. I take high dose Lexapro. I take Lamictal, which is a mood stabilizer, and I take Ritalin. Very high doses of all three of them. All three of those. And right now it really works. But I also do a lot of therapy because I believe that you can't do one or the other. Some people can do one or the other. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
So that's Carly in a nutshell.
And I think it's so helpful because I think it's really.
Carly also goes to AA and Al-Anon, and now DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. Those are all groups.
Yeah, my entire field of therapy. But I am now a DBT
evangelist.
I am. It's
So anyway, what were you going to say?
Mind blowing.
No, I think there's so much good there. I mean, there is. I mean, first off, I mean, just thank you. I mean, just the vulnerability, even of sharing all of the ways that you have in your life sought after help to be able to function the way that you want to function in the world, I think is incredibly courageous. I as someone who I'm very much right now wrestling with medication, have been on Celexa for a long time, for a couple years, and
Alexa gave me really good diarrhea. In case
not super happy with it.
So there's a lot of side effects, and it really, really is a big, big deal. You must talk. And what I say when you go to a psychiatrist, they don't give a shit what you're doing. They're not judging you. They need to have all the information. And when I say go to a psychiatrist, you say, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm eating, this is how many times I have sex, this is how many times I want to have sex and can't, this is how much I'm pooping, this is what they must have. They are witch doctors, this is what my dad says, they are witch doctors, they're stirring the pot, and they need to know what ingredients they're putting in. Otherwise, you're the one who's going to suffer. They don't care.
So I mean, and for me, my deal with Celexa is, one, I've gained 50 pounds since I've been on it.
That's why a lot of people with severe bipolar disorder are unmedicated because all of those medicines make them gain and makes them feel like this.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what's not making me less depressed is looking in the mirror and seeing a fatter person than I used to see.
That's correct.
But there's also the fact that one of the things I was finding was that it was such a numbing effect that
Wrong one.
I wasn't going to the lows that I could be experiencing, but I also wasn't experiencing the highs.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm working on now. But I think there is people need to know that all of the resources that are out there. I think, yes, talk therapy is good for. I think everyone should do a little bit of talk therapy, but I think there are also some of us who need that additional medical attention. It really is a medical issue. Yeah. And to be able to have a professional in your life that is able to help you with the medical side of things. And then we kind of add them to the mix of what Amy and I do, which is spiritual direction, which is something completely different than talk therapy, although it can look very similar.
Yes.
So Amy, how have you said the person that you were seeing was kind of both a therapist and a spiritual director.
Yeah.
How do you distinguish those two aspects in that? How did you distinguish those two aspects in that relationship?
Yeah. So the person that I was seeing was like licensed as both a psychotherapist and a spiritual director.
Who?
Okay.
In Kansas?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And that was important to me because...
I didn't know that. Sorry. I'm going to have to get up because I can't not talk. I'm still here. I'm sorry. Either I'm going to interrupt or I can do that?
I'm
listening.
So to me, a psychotherapist is looking at what's going on psychologically. So it's about your own mind and how your mind either supports or undermines your life and what you want your life to be. I am a deeply spiritual person who had just come out of seminary. Mm-hmm. So I also needed to talk with someone theologically. I needed to talk with someone about my relationship with God, in addition to how my own mind was supporting and undermining me. Mm-hmm. So how I think about spiritual direction is therapy is about not just my brain, but how do I say this? Let me start with spiritual direction. Spiritual direction is about my heart and my relationship with God. That's the number one thing that it's about. And when I'm talking with a directee, a client, my number one priority is looking at their relationship with God and how that relationship is being embodied and manifested through their behavior, through their thought processes, through their life. Mm-hmm. And if there is a desire, belief, value in their relationship with God that is not being embodied in their life, then that's a limitation. Yeah. That deserves to be opened. Because once that limitation is lifted, there is a deeper sense of fulfillment and purpose and satisfaction in life.
Yeah.
I feel like psychology as a practice isn't about God. Mm-hmm. It's about experience and thought processes and feelings, emotions. So it's more scientific. Mm-hmm. It's more clinical. And in some ways, it's a little bit more sterile. Mm. And what I do is more holistic. So I look at the spiritual root of the psychological issue and help to heal that spiritual root. Mm-hmm. So there are definitely therapeutic effects of spiritual direction, at least the kind that I practice, because I'm not like the spiritual director who's just going to listen to you and then you and then send you on your way. I'm like, okay, you have this belief, and why? And what is that? And is that really in present time with your actual lived experience? And wait, is that, so I'm like all up in people's business because some people need that. And I need that.
Absolutely.
And so I'm kind of like, I'm a spiritual director, yes. And there's definitely there's like life coaching mixed in with that too. Because I'm not just a passive witness kind of person. So again, for me, spiritual direction is primarily about a person's relationship with God and how that relationship is manifesting in their life. Most therapists I know aren't really even thinking about a person's faith or their relationship with God and how that affects their life.
Right. Unless it's somehow
unless there's true.
Yeah.
Unless they had an abusive father who used the Bible to justify his abuse.
Exactly. Unless their faith somehow contributes to
their
psychological profile in a way, and usually in a way that's not positive.
Yes. Yeah. And so most of the people I work with are not like deeply disturbed people.
Mm-hmm. You see me.
They're they're folks who just have a sense that there is a way to live that's more fulfilling than the way they're living now.
Yeah.
So,
And I think something that I've taken from you in our conversations about spiritual direction is that there is an aspect of spiritual companionship that comes along with spiritual direction that I think is really important. I think it's the idea that for people who are people of very deep faith, there is a way of walking beside them that is completely different than what a therapist does, which is not necessarily a mutual relationship.
yes. Spiritual direction is a sacred partnership
Mm-hmm.
that brings about a deeply enriching and fulfilling way of being.
Yeah.
It shifts your entire way of being, not just your thought process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story you told me a while ago that I was hoping that you would tell again tonight because it was just something that stuck with me and I really loved it.
Yeah, so I was always a pretty sensitive kid. And sensitive meaning I was always hyper aware of how my behavior affected other people. And I was always super aware when like somebody wasn't liked or didn't have a friend or whatever. And I genuinely liked most people. So I wanted to be liked. Like, you know, you're a kid. That's what happens. And I was like really pretty brutally made fun of and bullied all through school. And it really hit a critical point in 4th grade when my teacher was diagnosed with cancer. And so she went on leave and we had a long-term substitute. And it was just like, for a while we had lots of substitutes and there was no consistent presence of authority. And so these 2 girls were at sat with me at my table, at the same table. Like they sat across from me for 8 hours, day in and day out. And for whatever reason, my parents always said they were jealous of me because they both came from broken families and my family was healthy. But for whatever reason, they made fun of me incessantly, day in and day out. And we landed in the counselor's office. I landed in the counselor's office because I was having a really hard time. And my mom was like, hey, she needs to talk to someone who likes, you know, who can be reassuring. So I would talk to her and I would escape from them to her room, to the counselor's room. I would escape from them to the nurse's office. So it started in the nurse's office. I would go to the nurse's office with a tummy ache or a sore throat or whatever, and I would be there for a couple hours, and then she'd send me back to class. And eventually the nurse was like, I think Amy needs to talk to the counselor, the guidance counselor. So I did. And she was so nice. Like, no matter what was going on, I could talk to her, and she was friendly to everybody, and everybody liked her. And, you know, she was just like this rock that you could always count on. And, you know, her presence really affected me. And at one point that year, I was asked what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, I wanted to be a professional friend. I don't know. I mean, I don't know where that came from, but I was just like, because that's how I saw her.
Right.
You know, I saw her going to work and getting paid to be friends with these kids who were being made fun of.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to do that. Her name was Mrs. Peterson. And I was like, I want to do Mrs. Peterson's job. I want to be a professional friend. At the time, I didn't know. I mean, I was like 9. I didn't know like all of the exploitation that people do.
Sure.
You know, and that some people really do pay for friends. But I just really recognized her companionship to me, and that she was always on my side. And when everything else in my day was terrible, she was always happy to see me.
Yeah.
And that really, like, I was like, that I want to do that when I grow up. And then I had completely forgotten about that at all until I think I was in grad school. I would think I was in seminary, and I think my mom reminded me because the counselor had told her that story, or she was even there maybe. And that's really what I am now. And I don't see professional friend as being like a person that you pay to be your friend.
Right.
I feel like being a professional friend is its own sort of vocation and identity, because it's like, no matter what, I'm on your side. And at the same time, I'm not going to let you manipulate me. I'm not going to let you slide. Like, if you say to me that you have a particular desire and there's a theological backing to that desire, I will hold you to it. Because it's what you want, and it's what you told me you wanted.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to just let you, like, you know, be in fear or denial or avoidance.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, there really isn't a separation from your own deep desires and callings and God's deep desires and calling and desires for you. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is it's like, there's not some big booming voice coming down from heaven. There's not a burning bush that's going to speak to you. Like, the voice in your heart is the voice of the divine.
Yeah.
And the more that we can live into an embodiment of that voice, meaning saying yes to that voice and living it, the more closely we walk with God, the more closely we, and the more fulfilling our life is.
Yeah.
So that's a really long-winded answer to your question. But yes, I was in 4th grade, and my guidance counselor asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I told her I wanted to be a professional friend. And now
and here you are.
And here I am.
But I think it's, I mean, one, I love that story, but two, I also think there's something great about this. I think in a world where, I think just generally, I think people, one of the things they wrestle with more than anything else in this world is loneliness. Mm-hmm. And I think,
and who can I trust?
Right.
And one of the greatest compliments a client gave me was, I know I can trust you. And that no matter what I'm feeling, I can trust you to give me honest feedback.
Yeah.
And that was like,
and I think that's what happens in good spiritual direction relationships. That's what happens in good therapeutic relationships. That's what happens in places where you know that you can go and see this person, that they will be for you, they will be on your side, they will
be honest. And that's that's really, to me, all relationships require honesty.
Yeah. If
you don't have that, what do you really have?
Absolutely. And yet there is that advantage I think we all find to that neutral person who I can be honest with them, and and I won't lose a friendship, I won't lose a family connection, I won't lose a work relationship. I can go there, say what I need to say, hear what I need to hear reflected back from them, and know that I can come back next week and we'll do it all again. And
maybe. Yeah. So I know we kind of were sort of talking about earlier, you and I were talking about, what's the process of finding a therapist if you feel like it would be helpful. And I asked Carly that question, and she said that Psychology Today, the magazine, has a really great online catalog of therapists. And every therapist there has a really pretty extensive profile. and you can read all about their qualifications and their approach and, specialties, that sort of thing. And to not be afraid to take as many phone calls with as many therapists as you need before you feel like you have found a good fit.
Yeah.
Because every spiritual director that I know and therapist that I know, they're happy to talk to you for a half an hour for free just to find out if you're a good fit for each other.
Yeah.
And for me as a spiritual director, I don't enjoy clients who aren't a good fit for me.
Yeah.
So, when I approach one of those conversations, okay, sorry. When I approach a conversation with a new person, I'm looking at, is this a good fit?
Yeah.
So it really isn't, to me, it's not about money. It's not about me trying to sell myself. It's about, okay, is this person in a place where we can really jive together?
Yeah.
It's a matchmaking.
Yeah. And I would add to that, I think what Carly has pointed out a couple times, and I echo this, I think it also requires you having a little bit of self-awareness of being able to say, is this person someone that I'm going to get them to say the things that I want them to say, or is this person that we're actually going to be able to work together?
Right.
The therapist that I'm currently seeing, in the blog post that I put on our site today, on our Facebook page today, I pointed this out. When we first met, when she first started our first maybe meeting or two, I was really on the fence about her because she felt so dismissive. She felt like she actually said something to the effect of, "Oh yeah, I've seen your type before."
Ooh.
And I was like, "What? Like that is not okay."
Yeah.
And I was really close to just being like, "Okay, this needs to end. This is not a good match." I stuck with it because there were, like, in between that feeling, there were a couple things that she was saying that were really good. And what I found was she was trying to get me to cut through the bullshit to get to the real stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I couldn't imagine like keeping my sanity without her.
Right.
And sometimes therapy with her, therapy with her is hard because we're dealing with really tough stuff. And yet I'm also very aware of the fact that probably more than anyone else in the last couple years, she has been the voice of Derrick Weston is a good person. And yeah. Weston has something to contribute to the world. And
mm-hmm.
Once we get through all of this shit, don't forget that there's a really good guy underneath all of it. And that's she's a bizarre woman. She's absolutely bizarre. But I think I've gotten to the point where I probably needed someone really bizarre to work with me. But all of that is to say that, like, it really is, it's a dance, and you kind of have to find the right partner, who's ready to dance with you and who's at the level that, there have been places where I've needed the more gentle hand, mm-hmm. and then there have been places where I've needed the kick in the ass,
mm-hmm.
and you just kind of have to find the person who's at that level where you are.
And the person who can adapt to where you are.
Yeah.
That's my approach, is if you need a kick in the ass, I will kick you. If you're in a place where it's really more appropriate for someone just to listen and be gentle, I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my only advice is to go with your gut. Like, if your gut says, ugh, then, call someone else.
Yeah. So we're getting close to time, and Carly, I wanted to ask you kind of a closing question. I feel like I say often how hard therapy is, and I don't say it to be discouraging to people. I say it to be real. Like, if you're actually going to do the work of therapy, it's going to be hard. If you're actually going to put the work in, it's going to be hard. And I know that for some people, how hard therapy is actually it's a discouragement from them actually getting help that they probably really need. Mm-hmm. What would you say to those people who probably really need that extra help, probably actually need that person to talk to, but they're scared of doing the work?
It's funny because I'm going to say they'll do it when they've had enough. Mm. When you've had enough, like, how I feel when people start to get better is when it's not when they've hit a bottom, it's when they decide they don't want to get worse. And for me, therapy, when I'm in the room, is not hard. It's the living the rest of the week. And that's what I say when people say, oh, I think I have a problem with drinking. I'm like, well, what does it feel like when you're not drinking? That's when we'll decide where your problem actually is. And for me, it's like, because I have attachment problems, my whole life is just counting down to when I can get back in the therapy room. And living with those skills the rest of the week and not just waiting is the difficult part. So it's like taking those skills out in the world and then living is difficult. And with people who don't, I don't know, it depends on who we're talking to. If we're talking to adults, who need therapy, you'll know when you've had enough. And when you can no longer talk to your friends, when you need somebody who's going to, everyone has one friend who's in therapy. Talk to them. And they'll tell you what you need to hear. Somebody who's not, it's different when you're a child, when you're younger and, it's a parent, with their kid needs therapy. That's a different story. As an adult, when you're ready to be not, I wouldn't say happy, because I wouldn't say that I'm happy all the time. Rarely. When I'm tired of being miserable, not just miserable, when I want to be a part of life, a member of society, and not just on the outside. I cannot do it without professional helping me. And you have to be honest with, I don't know, you'll do it when you'll do it. It's not, I feel like I don't even want to give people advice, because if you're asking me, then I'll tell you how to do it. But if you're not ready, then you're just going to waste everyone else's time.
Yeah.
I'm a little, it's weird. That's where my tough love is.
Yeah, and that might be true with therapy, but for me, as a spiritual director, I feel like everyone can benefit from spiritual direction.
Correct.
Because inevitably there is some way that you are hiding from God, or that you are holding God or other people at arm's length and resisting that. Even yourself. Whatever it is that you're holding at arm's length and you're resisting with all of your strength, that is the thing to talk to me about. Because at the root of that resistance is some thing that somebody told you along the way. It's some belief that you are embodying, whether you actually cognitively know it and believe it or not. And that's where I come in to help clear that out and root you in your direct lived experience of the divine.
Yeah.
And if someone told you something and you have a mental disorder, like me, then that belief becomes destructive enough to color my entire life in a very destructive way. And therefore, I think that's when you need to decide. You need a professional in the medical field, where my spiritual direction comes from AA, because it is, and the people that I choose to stay close with in AA are those who live a spiritual life. And so that's where I get mine. So I look at Julie Caffey, she's my spirit, and Brene Brown, actually, is my spiritual director. I recommend highly. So it's like,
it's amazing.
I do both. And I couldn't do that without medication and therapy. And I couldn't do medication and therapy without having the other side as well. It's all, it's a zone defense. You gotta play, you know?
I love it. Great. This is so good. Carly, thank you so much for being here and for being so vulnerable. I mean, I just really do appreciate how open and honest you were in sharing with us all of your experiences. It's so helpful.
There are lots of them.
Amy, what's going on with you? What do you have to say and sell and?
Okay. We love you. What do I have to say and sell?
What are you selling us now, Amy?
What am I? Let me just open the back of my wagon and peddle my wares. Yeah, so I'm a spiritual director, so like if any of this resonates with you and you're like, yeah, I want that, AmyDianeShoemaker.com is my website, and right now I'm only accepting virtual clients, so there's that.
AlexisLezin.com.
Carly recommends Alexis Lezin. That's Alexis, Lezin. She works with individuals and couples, and she's accepting new patients, and she's awesome. She's in San Francisco and Oakland, and she does art therapy in addition to drama therapy. She's great.
Sorry, I didn't mean to push her as well, but she's so good.
It's okay. So that's, this Drinks with Amy. Keep watching because we have new stuff coming up. Yeah. And that's all I got. How about you?
That's good. So I am, I'm writing a lot more, and I have, if people want to support my writing, which Yeah,
you're doing Patreon.
I am doing Patreon, so you can find me on Patreon. Just look for Derrick Weston on Patreon, and you'll see.
Have you any money yet?
Yeah, actually, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I have a handful of folks who are supporting me, and that's really cool. And and I'd like to be able to do more of that, more writing, and more just creating in general. So yeah, you can find me stuff there.
That's so great. I'm so proud of you for doing that Patreon stuff.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, like talk about vulnerability.
It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. That's like a whole different orientation to money.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am constantly
you have a lot more faith in other people than I do. No.
Yeah, so and so far that faith has been rewarded. So I'm grateful for the folks who are helping me out, and hoping that there will be more such folks who decide.
Yeah, will you put that link on Drinks with Amy?
I sure will. I will. Cool. So we'll be back in a couple weeks, and and I can
only see the bottom half of your face, by the way.
There's the rest of it. And so Amy and I talked today about a handful of things that we want to do, and we've been talking about, we've been so topical since we started the show, and I feel like we've gotten away from just basics of self-care.
Yeah.
And so at some point, as we're starting to plot out the future episodes of the show, we're just kind of gonna get people back to
the basics of self-care series.
Yeah, just kind of like talking about like what are that like? What's
What does that even mean?
like eating and sleeping and exercise and good relationships and things like
Building
that.
blocks of life.
Yeah, like the nitty gritty stuff that's not necessarily about what you're reading in the newspaper. So
yeah. Yay! Awesome.
That's it for us today. Yeah.
That's all I got.
That's all I got. I'm out. I'm out of beer. I'm out of things to say. So.
Yeah. To an empty glass.
Oh nope, there's more beer there. Okay. There's more beer there than I thought. Okay. So anyway.
All right. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks.
All right.
All right. Stay tuned to Facebook for information about that.
Yeah. We'll have more stuff going on.
Awesome.
Bye.
All right. Bye.